Hi there and welcome to March's Practice Clinic Live. I'm Graham Fitch, the co-founder of the online academy, and we have loads of questions today sent in by online academy subscribers. The way this works, the questions are related as closely as possible to practicing as opposed to mechanical technique, although of course those two things overlap because technique and practice is technique, so there's not a very clear distinction between the two things. So I'm looking to see who we've got. We've got Betty and we've got Janet and Viv. Nice to see you. I'm peering at my phone here, so I can't see absolutely everything that you write, although I will look afterwards, after we're done. I will look at the comments and have a look and see if there's anything I need to respond to. Veronique, and there's Eric, nice to see you. Yes, press the red heart buttons, that's always nice to see that. So let me jump straight in, because as I say, we've got quite a lot of questions sent in by subscribers this month. Beginning with a question from Laurie, who asks this. I appreciate your resources about eliminating unnecessary tension. Having played for many years, I was surprised to notice how often I am holding my breath, even during something like routine triads. Do you have any tips for coordinating breathing more evenly with playing? Yes, I think of breathing, I'm very much reminded of Chopin's own advice on breathing, which was to breathe through the wrist. So, I did a demonstration recently for Pianist magazine where I showed what happens at the bottom of, let's say I'm playing a long chord. I think I use this. Which is the B flat Partita of Bach, the saraband. Now, if I wanted to breathe, I would have to move my body. So I don't play my chord and sit there. And then wait, okay, now the next note's due. How long have I got? Yes, now. I'm feeling the length of the note, physically. You can see there, it's as though my arm is breathing. So that, I think, is a very important thing in piano playing. When we've got a long note, we tend not to sit on it without moving, without breathing. But if you wanted to do something specific, you mentioned triads there, Laurie, why not actually program in your breathing with your playing? So you can do a little exercise on this. So if I'm playing a broken triad like this, see what I'm noticing there is as I come up, I'm breathing in. You can see this is breathing in and this is now breathing out. In, out. So I could inhale, exhale. And you see the inhalation movements in my arm. The arm is inhaling and now exhaling through the wrist. And I was looking at something, a real piece of music. It just happened to be sitting on my piano from a lesson the other day. This is the Rondo Capriccioso of Mendelssohn, which starts off with the perfect example of breathing phrases. Breathe. Breathe. So in those moments, I physically breathe. I imagine a clarinet player and I would want to breathe with the clarinet player. Even in these, you've got to be careful when you get to these little anxious breathing places. Because the music there is expressing anxiety, isn't it? You can feel breathlessness. But we, the player, have got to be a little bit careful about getting too involved in the emotions of that as we're playing, because we could hyperventilate if we're not careful. And we don't actually want to be feeling the emotions that we're portraying. We want to be aware of those emotions as we play, but not actually to feel them. So we need to breathe, but we need to do it in a way that is somewhat removed from the energy of the music, if that makes any sense. So yes, breathing is vital to all music and to all playing. So that's Laurie's question. Eric comes with this question: playing thirds smoothly and absolutely together while emphasizing the melodic line. And Eric gives an example from the Consolation of Liszt, the third Consolation. Just while we're on this Consolation, unless you're going to use your sostenuto pedal, which by the way Liszt completely sanctioned. He loved the idea. He heard about this newfangled sostenuto. Oh yeah, it'd be perfect for my D-flat Consolation. But the problem with the sostenuto, it very rarely works properly, and I don't really like to rely on it too much. So, you know, my way of doing this is to actually replay. Left hand there. Either a half pedal here, and then a replay there. Replay. Don't obviously change the pedal there because there's one harmony through. So that wasn't your question, but that does present problems to people. So the edition that I'm using very sensibly, this is the Alfred edition. As you know, I do rather like the Alfred edition. They're very, very sensible. The editor here is suggesting, let me just see who the editor is. It's always good to know. Maurice Hinson, very, very respected authority. He says here, let me just see. Another solution to these measures is to catch the low B flat. No, wait. Let me go back. Yes, here he says the low D flat in measures 1 to 9 should be played very quietly in each measure, even though tied, since the pedal changes make it lose its continuous sound. I've struggled with this for years, thinking, well, I can do a lot of it by half pedals. I could do some of it by half pedals. But in the end, I think that's probably the most sensible, most practical solution. Just touch it in very softly. But getting back to Eric's question, if I go to bar 27, here's the thirds. Put this on the beat. Yeah. Whoops. Now, there's several things to say about that. Thirds, we need to think of them as two voices. That's the first thing I would say. Soprano, alto, and actually practice them that way. And I'm a great believer in using the fingering that I will be using when I play both voices. So Liszt has written this. But I would start off my practice by just taking top note. And then going on a bit, and then looking at the alto, rather lighter. Softer sound. And then when I put them together, there's all sorts of antics that we can engage in for practice. One is to double play the top finger. With a kind of tenuto, really clingy touch on the top. When I do the same job with my lower voice, what I'm actually doing is playing that lighter, leggero. So I want to develop the sensation of clinginess in the top part of the hand and lightness in the underneath part of the hand. We can also do broken thirds. way round and this way round. That's very useful. Another thing that I like to do is to mime the lower voice. So I'm going to play the upper voice as it should be, but my lower note, my lower finger, is just going to touch the top of the key. Now you're only going to hear the top line, but I can assure you I'm touching the underneath finger and just not allowing the note to sound. And then that will lead eventually to a kind of balance where you can hear a lot of top. Very little underneath. Very flexible here, really flexible in the wrist. So those are some thoughts there for Eric. Now, Alan, this is his question. The air from Bach's E minor Partita No. 6, BWV 830. I've been playing and practicing this piece for years, but I still have difficulty with fluency and rhythmic accuracy in the left hand. I do prefer a fast tempo, and Alan goes on to give his tempo. Specifically, the descending patterns from the second half, and Alan goes on to give specific bar numbers. The air is this. Right, for those of you who might want to place that. Now the bars that Alan is describing, just let me make sure I've got exactly. Yes, the left hand. If I'm going now to bar 6, 7, 8, bar 8, and we just get a whole string of quavers. That's eighth notes. Now, first thing I would do is to group those notes into groupings that make sense to my brain and to my hand. So if we look at the fingering that's given in this edition, now I'm using the old Henle with, I think this is Hans Martin Theopold's, yes, Hans Martin Theopold's fingering, who wasn't particularly concerned, in those days they didn't really concern themselves too much with the idea of early music or Baroque fingering. They tended to just use conventional sort of 19th century style fingering. Nothing wrong with it. You know, you could do what they say, what he says is this: 1, so 1 to 5, then a 1, then a 2, now a 1, 2, then a 1, then another 1, and another 1. That's standard fingering, it makes perfect sense. The alternative, 1, now there you have to do a 2, but here you could do several groups of 1 to 4. 1 to 4, 1 to 4, 1 to 4, 1 to 4, if you felt like it. In terms of practicing to embed a fingering, I think the first thing to do is to take the tempo way down to something just incredibly slow, because we want to think about each finger, we want to get each finger right. We don't want to make any errors here. So the speed of no mistakes, if you will. Very legato, because I want to feel the connection from one finger to the next. See how slow that is? I've got plenty of time to think about what I've just done, and plenty of time to think about what I'm about to do. So therefore I eliminate the need for a mistake. There's no need to make a mistake if I've got that much thinking time. So that would be one thing. Another thing I like to do, I call this the mountaineer's footstep. If you think about being on a mountain or a hillside, you've got one foot on the ground, and you're not going to lift this foot until you've got a secure footing there. And when that foot is secure, then you can lift this one. So what does that have to do with piano playing? Well, what it means is that I can kind of double tap, or even single tap, the next note before I play it, before I commit to it. meaning that I can prepare it ahead. I'm holding down my first note, my original note. I could tap twice if I wanted, or three. I'm preempting what I've got to do, and then when I'm ready, then I transfer my weight across to the new finger that I've landed on. That's one thing. Now, another thing for embedding fingering that comes to us from the great line of English craftsmanship in piano practice, and this is known as doubles, and please do not confuse this with double rotations if you are coming from the Taubman philosophy, Taubman school. This has got nothing to do with that. This is, you're here. So instead of playing, I'm going to do, did you hear what I did? These two notes twice, then these two notes twice. Now that's interesting when I come to the second beat, because I've got a contraction there. My hand gets an extra chance to feel that contraction. Now the beauty of that is I can do that in one hand and play the other hand straight. Let me do that the other way around. Way to practice. Now, of course, any other rhythmical work can be useful if it's done intelligently. You know, we're all aware of dotted rhythms. Hold this note, and then an impulse of two very quick ones. And on the long note, I'm focused on switching off any kind of effort that may have been involved. But loose, 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 loose. So those are impulses of two notes. Then I could invert that. And then I can work in bigger units, maybe of four. So on that long note, I am at a point of repose. I'm waiting and then preparing my next group of notes. I'm not sitting there looking out of the window thinking of something else. I'm preparing in one impulse. And what I can do, I mean, I'm not going to dwell on this now because there's loads of different rhythmical possibilities. That's 4 notes slow, 4 notes fast, or the other way around. You can do that 8 notes slow. And then 8 notes fast. Yes, got the idea. Do some different touches. Staccato. Staccato in one hand. Play one hand twice. Then reverse. You can dream up a whole array of different variants, each of which will give you a chance to think and concentrate on that passage from a different angle, so you don't habituate. The more you play it the same, the less we focus and concentrate on it. So change around the activity, it'll cause you to focus on it. Just quickly before we leave that, chaining. I could do note chaining, 2 notes, and then 3. When I'm happy with those 3, 4 notes. When I'm happy with those 4, 5. When I'm happy with those 5. Right, I could do note chaining, or I could do beat chaining, let's say half bars. And then start from the note I stopped on. And then, whoops. And then that kind of idea, yeah? And then just to quickly address your next point there, Alan. Yeah, the fingering, I'm looking at bar 20. The fingering that Theopold gives, 3, 5. Whoa, I don't like his fingering. 3, 5. After the thumb, there's a kind of contraction into the 5, which I could see. could cause problems. So I think what I would do there, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. Groups of 4 could also work, but it's important to know the groupings, to know your fingerings. Linda needs a basic explanation of shaping. She hears the term from time to time in tutorials and doesn't quite understand what it is and how to do it. Could you illustrate with a short passage showing how shaping improves it? How about something from Liszt's Liebestraum or the third movement of Beethoven's Pathetique Sonata, both of which are pieces I'm working on. Okay, so I mean, I happen to have the Pathetique Sonata sitting in front of me. Now, okay, Linda, the word shaping has two meanings in piano playing. One is a musical shaping. In other words, if I'm playing the finale of the Pathetique Sonata without shape, heaven forbid, I can't go on, that's so uncomfortable to do. It's just flat like a robot. So what sort of shape would I see? Well, first of all, I use my eyes in conjunction with my ears. I notice that there are a bunch of notes that go up to a E flat and then fall down to a C, so that there's a kind of rise and then a fall. Yeah. So I'm shaping that phrase dynamically, melodically, from a musical perspective, not from a technical perspective. But if I was thinking of technical shaping, well, let me go on with the musical shaping for a moment, because thereafter, I see a whole bunch of eighth notes, quavers, that are on the rise, but they don't rise directly, they rise up with little kind of loops, spinning loops. And Beethoven puts an acciaccatura at the beginning of each spinning group. Highest point so far, but there's the highest point, midpoint. So the C seems to be my point of repose, my gravitational stopping point, and everything else kind of reacts against that C or in relation to that C. Now, let's look a little bit at technical shaping. Usually this is connected to the movements that we need to make in toward the back of the keyboard and up when we're accommodating short fingers, let's say thumb and pinky on black notes. We've got to make an adjustment up and in, right? And if we've got long fingers, 2, 3, 4 on white keys, we have to make an adjustment out, down and out. Yeah, so things like, I mean, I would never prepare the hand position for that. I could, if I wanted to, say, right, I've got these few notes there, I can put my hand there and just play them all from one position. That, to me, is absolutely fatal, because that's very unnatural, it's very unmusical, and it's tension creating. So I would never do this. I would always move. Did you see there? I didn't particularly have my fourth finger ready on my E flat, but I moved to it and then out. Now here, I want my thumb to be low point, so I lift up before my thumb. So things like my left hand, if I show you my left hand, I would never play like this in a fixed position. I would want to mobilize my hand to create little circles here. Small movements. Let me see if I can find another example of shaping. It would be literally everywhere you looked, and you know, these movements are very subtle. But the trouble is, if we've come from a place where we've been taught to fix the hand and to use the fingers like this, which a lot of us have come from at some point in our piano journey, then, you know, these movements are completely liberating, because we realize by moving, we free ourselves up. Tension just disappears. We feel coordinated. There would be too many, I think, to... Okay, so I'm looking at bar 87, left hand. There I need to be in this position. Here I need to be a little bit further in, but here I need to be further out. And as I play, I'm moving in to accommodate the black-white patterns that I find under my hand. So yeah, that in a nutshell, I hope that helps you. Linda? Alex, do you have any suggestions that would improve speed and flowing quality needed in Debussy's Arabesque No.1? In particular, I refer to bars 6 onwards, where the 2 verses 3 rhythm cascades beautifully. I have the rhythm down, but getting it to that next level where it feels free and flowing is still eluding me. Well, okay, I can give you a process that I can kind of guarantee will work, but it might not work immediately. You might have to exercise a little patience with it. So the spot that Alex is referring to... that spot there, it's very mellifluous and very kind of floaty and kind of gorgeous, really. So the left hand is in 2s, tuplets. And again, I'm wanting a kind of shape. I don't want to play those evenly in terms of tone. I want to give a kind of hairpin crescendo to the middle. The right hand is written in triplets. I have my own fingering, which I'm not going to divulge. No, shall I? Okay. 2, 3, 1, 5, 2, 3, 1, 5, 2, 3, 1, 5, 3. I just love that fingering because it enables me to just... I don't know, what am I doing? Stroking the keyboard. I don't feel like I'm striking the keys, I'm stroking the keyboard with that fingering. So, if you've got the 2s against 3s precise, then the next job is to get them to sound more musical and more free, actually. So the spiel is this. Take a metronome. I can't use my metronome because it's on the very phone that I'm using to record this thing. So I'm just going to use my other hand to kind of click metronomically. So what I do is I take one little beat. Here's my metronome. Alternate the hands until such time as I felt like I was brave enough to try it together. First time you try it probably won't work. Now together. Work at that a little bit. Now maybe I can do the same with the next beat. And notice I'm using my pedal. And then now maybe I could do 2 beats. Brave. And what will happen is, after a while, you'll find that you can coordinate that very, very well, because just think about what you've done there. You've practiced right hand, then you practice left hand, really focused on listening to this and then alternating with this. And you come back and forward to that, and then eventually you try it together, and you trust your body, that your body will coordinate that, because actually you can't be thinking about it. When I play this piece, I can play it to you and talk to you, because I don't need to be thinking. Because if I'm thinking about it, chances are I'm not going to get it right. So yes, Brendan says this definitely works. I used it for the Chopin impromptu. Yes, fantastic. That would be the fantasy impromptu, presumably. So the same sort of idea. Yeah, it works fantastically for any kind of polyrhythm, but you do need that stable pulse. Okay, thank you, April, for your comment. Now, let's move, because we've still got more. Yes, okay, Car, I would like to ask about the articulation that we should use to play the notes at the start of Scarlatti, K260. I've got a problem first there, Scarlatti, Car, with your word should. You say, I would like to ask about the articulation that we should use to play the notes at the scale. The thing with Baroque music is only some of it is, oh, you're welcome, Chris, I can see you there now. Only some of it is notated in the page. So if you open a score of Beethoven, let's just do that, because we can. And if I flash this up to the screen, let me find a good example. Well, the beginning of this sonata here. I think you can all very clearly see that in this Beethoven sonata, almost every note has a marking of some sort of dynamic marking, right? You can see a mark of articulation, a staccato, a slur, tenuto markings, not pedaling in this instance, but, virtually everything else is prescribed. Now, a score of Scarlatti, I'm going to show you this score. Tell me where you see any dynamic markings. Tell me where you see any articulation markings, phrase markings. Nowhere will you find one. Then I hear some of you saying, well, Bach sometimes writes F and P. Yes, but he doesn't mean it doesn't mean the same sort of thing as loud and soft. When Bach writes F, he's telling us to use the lower keyboard of a two-manualed harpsichord, and when he writes P, he's telling us to use the upper manual of a two-manualed harpsichord. Now, usually, the upper manual is softer and more delicate than the lower manual, but it's kind of not the point. The point really is that it's a different color to the tonally. It's a different color. It's more nasal on the upper keyboard. Yes, it's usually softer, but it just so happens to be softer. So the F keyboard and the P keyboard. Other than that, in Scarlatti's music and in Bach's music, it's all based on the surroundings, the circumstance. Now, if you've got notes like this that jump around, that have big sort of gaps between them, then you're probably better off going for something lighter, like a staccato. But here, I might be a little bit less staccato in the answering phrase, and then perhaps I would do an echo there, just because I feel like it, because the music seems to give me the opportunity to make an echo effect there. These notes could be, if you wanted them to be, a little bit more legato, because they're close together. Stepwise is often more legato than skipwise. See what I'm saying there? But there's no absolute. There's no rule that says these notes have to be staccato. Let your own good taste prevail. Experiment. The other thing I would suggest doing, I did this just quickly before pressing the button. You know, you listen to a few recordings and you'll hear, so the great Horowitz, who was such a great artist, such a great keyboard artist, a kind of magician of sound, would start off the piece dry, you know, no pedal, but even by around here, where am I? He's wanting a little resonance from his pedal, because the harmony is changing, you know, more to the dominant area. So, you know, in other words, there's a little bit of, he wanted a different color by then. Didn't want to be stuck with the same color that he had there. So he just uses a little pedal to make color. And I think, you know, if you look at what happens to this music a little bit later, wow, how could that be played in the same way as the beginning? It can't be, because the music is so different in its content. We've got these aching chromatics, suspensions and all sorts of things going on in the harmony, and it's just completely outlandish, this music. So to sort of confine it into a set of rules as to how it should be done misses the point that the music is first and foremost expressive. Secondly, the composer wrote in only partially how we want to, how it wants to be played, leaving a lot to the performer. So rather than be scared and say, well, I don't really know what to do, just say, well, if the composer's stupid enough to leave it blank, then I'm going to fill it in my own sweet way. And listen to great people like Glenn Gould to see how he filled it in. You know, he went mad and did all sorts of crazy stuff. Why not just try that and see how mad you can go? Just push the envelope as far as you can go in the crazy direction, and then, you know, then tame it a little bit, bring it back. But don't play grey. We don't want to hear grey. Right, colour is what we want. Okay, David's working on Gershwin Prelude No. 3 and is struggling to reduce tension in the right-hand octaves, starting in measure 51. Okay, well, right, just quickly here. He's been using the fourth finger on the B flat of the triplet octaves, which he can reach fairly comfortably. Do you have any suggestions on how I can reduce the tension here? Thank you for your help. Well, it's this bit. Yeah, so, you know, when we've got that, it's a kind of fake trill, there's a fake tremolo. See if you can use rotational movement there between 4 and 5. Let me bring it down an octave in case you can't see the top of my keyboard. You see, my thumb is actually coming away from the B flat. I'm not locking my thumb into place on the B flat. The issue here is just being light enough on those. You see, I think the problem is, what dynamic are we here? I should have looked at this, shouldn't I? The dynamic, I don't know, is probably quite strong. Let's say it's forte. Let's say it's even fortissimo. Don't have to fight so hard in this register of the piano. So what I'm discovering there is that my thumb is very light. I'm getting a little bit more sound. Whoops. Getting a little bit more sound there. One thing I would recommend, because I think that chord could be an issue, and also the next chord, when you have to land from an octave into a chord. And I can give you an idea for that. Let me just do the first one. Okay, so I'm going to jump off my E flat, and I'm going to land in just the octave, and then I'm going to touch in the remaining notes of the chord after. So now I'm going to land in, so let's say the top two notes, and touch in the remaining two notes after. Let me land in the bottom two notes, touch in the remainder. Let me land in the 1 and 4, touch in 2 and 5. Let me land in 2 and 5, touch in 1 and 4. That's a process I call selective landing, and it means that that jump is incredibly comfortable, because if we're worrying about that landing when we're playing this, we're going to start tightening up in preparation for that. Of course, you have to know your left hand extremely well. All of these jumps, make sure your left hand is fantastic by itself, because if you're worrying about your left hand, or if the left hand's not really working, then that's going to compound any problems you may have with your octaves. I think there is one more question. Yes, Angeles. Apologies if I've pronounced your name incorrectly. Angeles is currently working on Schumann of Foreign Lands and People. She's around grade 5 level. I've done a lot of detailed work on the 3 layers of the music. That's the melody, the bass line, just very light, and the insides, the triplets. Right. However, I'm still struggling to get the voicing and the dynamics right. Despite my efforts, my bass and triplets sound too heavy and somehow not smooth enough, and there is not enough dynamic contrast throughout the piece. When I try to introduce pianos, I find it hard to bring out the melody without it being too loud, and the whole thing loses balance. This is a piece I love, so simple and delicate, yet so evocative and profound. From the ones I've heard, Argarich's version is my favourite. Well, no surprise there. I appreciate with my level I can't get close to that. Why not? But I would really appreciate your advice to get the piece a little closer to where I would like it to be. Thank you so much. Okay, so if you've already gone through the 3 layers and you've played the top by itself, then you've played the top and the bottom, and you've played the lower 2 parts, which means left hand plus the right thumb, and perhaps you've done the melody with the triplets. A couple other things I would advise or recommend would be to mime. Now we started the clinic with some miming. What that really means is that I'm fully playing this line, but I'm only touching on the surface of the keyboard the other notes. I don't know if you can see. Now, if I can control that, it would mean that I can then play a little bit underneath, just maybe I allow 10% of the notes to sound. Oh, well, thinking too much. So some notes are sounding underneath, and then I gradually add a little bit more until I find, okay, that's probably all I need. That's about 30% effort downstairs there. Okay, but I think sometimes with piano playing, it's helpful to have, to talk in sensations, because what I sense when I play a legato cantabile line like that is deep connection with the key bed. Now, if you could imagine perhaps a rope bridge that is connected to a canyon, like 2 rock faces, and you've got this bridge made of rope. Okay, now the rope is connected securely to the rock on one side, and it's connected securely to the rock on the other. Now, in terms of my arm, I don't have to worry about that. My shoulder is not dislocated, it's strong. When I connect it with my hand in my keyboard, I've got there a deep connection into my pinky finger, and yet this is so free and smooth, but I'm connected. So if you were to come along and try to prise my fingers away from the keyboard, you wouldn't be able to lift them because I'm so glued to my key bed. Now that's not the same as key bedding. Key bedding is a negative thing where we push against the bottom of the key for no purpose. What I'm doing here is I'm grounding myself on my key beds and sliding around. Now this was known, Anton Rubinstein used to call this sort of thing the dog's paw, meaning that dogs don't have fingers, but dogs just roll their paw around. So I feel like I am rolling, really glued to my key bed, completely free here. And it gives me a quality of sound that's deep and penetrating, like a voice. I'm not going to try and sing. But if I then would have something around that that's out of the keyboard, lifted, like making pastry, you know, you're supposed to lift air into the pastry. Whoops. I'm too aware of it at the moment. And I can control my pressure. If I want a little softer, I do a little less. But what I've got there is a very distinctive type of touch that it creates the sound. It's not really a question of I mean, I would have to show you what that felt like. I hope I've described it at least accurately or, you know, convincingly, so you can then try it out. That is the end. We have reached the end of the slideshow, the end of the questions for this month. And all that's left for me to do is to thank you for your questions. Thank you for watching this. If you're watching it on YouTube, in the description below, you will see all sorts of information about how you can find out more about what we do on the online academy. The online academy is doing fantastically with pianists from all over the world signing up because they like our approach to teaching and to playing and to practicing. We do things that others don't cover. So please do look into the online academy, and I will very much look forward to seeing you next month for our next Practice Clinic Live. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.